Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Today we're going to be talking about fishbowl inventory, and this is part two of our Learn SQL series. Today we're joined by our co-host Joshua Klar. Josh, say hi to everybody.
Hello. Hello.
How are things in New York?
It's much the same. I haven't been out in a week, but or two. but
Yeah, same here. I think sometimes we just go out to a takeout, like a drive-through, just to
get
go
out of the
outside
house.
and see other people. it's it's kind of funny how it just feels really weird not to see your neighbors or
Yeah.
anybody walking around. Really,
Yeah, it's pretty surreal.
is the streets pretty empty down in New York?
They are pretty quiet. I mean, we live near like Riverside Park, so when you go there, it looks like there's people there,
Yeah,
but a lot of them have masks on now. They seem to be keeping apart. Like everybody, people are jogging, people are like biking and stuff, but people are not like the first few days afterwards. Like everybody was just playing basketball and hanging around in the park. Now it seems like people are a little more wary. There's a dog park, but everybody's kind of sticking to their own corner. So I don't know. I hope it's helped a little bit, but yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Well, we'll see. Here in California, that we've been pretty much like this for stay-at-home order for a while
Yeah,
now. I think everyone's kind of gotten used to it, but I
yeah,
know recently here they've said that the school won't come back until May, right?
yeah.
And that was a pretty big announcement for a lot of the families here that have kids. I have a brother who's still in high school, and my
Wow,
mom even I think they got an announcement to go pick up a Chromebook for kids that needed it.
wow.
My brother needed it because there's not. The thing is that they have computers at the house, but they're sharing it, right? So there's a
Right.
problem with that because somebody needs to work or someone needs to do paperwork, and you gotta need the kid's got to study when he needs to study, so or join a class when he needs to. So it's a pretty big change of pace, to handle that. Anyway, let me
Yeah.
introduce another person that's going to be on the live stream today, who's going to be moderating questions and be our voice of the audience, and that's Noelle. Noelle, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
And she'll be taking questions and preparing, you know, uh, making sure that we are able to answer them on the stream and get us going. So, Josh, you and I were on a client call earlier, and before
Mhm.
the call had started, you were talking about your experience learning Excel, and
Yes.
how's that been going?
I'm screwing up on it. No, it's a it's a great program called Excel University that I felt like if I'm going to do SQL, I should at least know what the the downsides are to the one that everybody uses. So it's this puzzle where like they while they're teaching you this whole quiz and everything, they're giving you a puzzle like okay, you have to find like hidden numbers within a cell and then use conditional formatting to find some kind of code. It's like a substitution code and it's very cool, but I'm just not getting it. So it's upsetting. I feel like I'm on the right track, but and there's nothing you can do. You can't go forward until you put the correct code in. So uh,
Right.
yeah, it's gonna be a little while.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really good to kind of explore what is possible with Excel. I certainly don't know everything in Excel. I just know that
Yeah,
the kind of things that I like to do in databases are it's just things that are not as easy to do
right.
in Excel. And we'll probably get through a little bit of that. Things that you would normally use like sum ifs in
Hmm.
Excel, we can do
Yeah,
something differently in SQL to get the same
right.
result, right? So that's kind of
Sure.
where we're going to be going with this live stream today. And in fact, let me do some housekeeping here. Let me turn on the background music,
Mhm.
and then we'll get started. There we go. Cool, awesome. So let me get my computer going. And Josh, can you see my computer screen
Yeah,
through the Zoom?
fishbowl.
You got Fishbowl up?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, a little bit before we get into the sequel, I want to let everybody know that last night we launched the company had launched the ILC store, so you can visit that over at store.israellopezconsulting.com. You'll see that down in the corner. Or can I get the no this way? I can't get my arrow right. There, my finger. Um, you can see that on the live stream. Just store.israellopezconsulting.com and check it out. We spent a lot of work putting it together. This is where we're going to put the live stream queries on the store. So the one that we did last week is here. You go under categories, queries, and you'll see the one that we worked on the other day, the bill material versus work order differences query. It's for free. Add to cart, check out. You'll receive an email with the query itself and the process to download it. And we have a you know how to how to order basically little page where you can expect what to get and that sort of thing, and the email that you get, the order link, that sort of thing. And we spent a lot of time making sure that that was going to work. We went through a lot of different vendors that that seemed like it was going to work, that ended up not working out, and trying something else. And we finally settled on Shopify. So if you can believe it,
Cool.
this is pure Shopify, and we use another
Nice.
service called SendOwl to manage the license key generation and the digital delivery, right? And our vision for this store is going to be this is where we're going to put our Fishbowl Java plugins. The little buttons that you can add to Fishbowl. Here's one of our mass supply plugins that people can order, and what it looks like, and all the instructions and links and EULAs and refund policies, terms and conditions, all that, so we can make it really easy for customers to decide whether they want to buy this or not, right? And
Right.
you buy it, you then download the file, install it to your Fishbowl, and you're off to the races, right? So that's kind of the long-term vision that we have with the store, is that we're going to continuously add new products. Some of our existing products that we've had for a very long time, for example, Shipworks, we've had, oh gosh, like maybe 4 years now, and
Nice.
now it's got its own proper page, rather than just you know somebody knowing it might who I am and saying, hey, he's got a product, go ask him. It's just
Mhm.
something you can go look at online. We'll be eventually adding videos to these pages and explaining what we can offer, what to expect, that sort of thing. So we're getting a bit better on the whole um, product development side of things, and it'll be part of our daily life pretty soon, that we'll be just putting stuff on the store and going from there. Another
Nice.
thing that's relevant to today, for people that are maybe looking at this, looking to Fishbowl, looking at the platform itself, and trying to understand what we've got to offer, and and how to get that integrated into your business. We have a paper reports pack called the paper reports pack, and the idea here is that you'll be able to buy uh, the templates that you're currently enjoying on whatever system you're using. Just give us a PDF, and if it's the sales order receipt, purchase order, transfer order, travelers, pick tickets, shipping, bill of lading, a packing list, invoices, that sort of thing, we will convert whatever you provided to us into a report template that you can use in Fishbowl, so you don't have to worry about how to implement that yourself, so that we can offer that to new customers who are new to Fishbowl. We have a process where we walk you through the entire chain and cycle, and if this process isn't the way we explain it, isn't exactly what you're looking for, we also offer a billable hour consulting and report development as well. And sometimes that can be a bit cheaper depending on what needs to happen. But we're going to be doing more of these kind of orders on the store, so that people have an idea of what they should expect when they're working with ILC. Anyway, so that's going to keep the bills paid today. Let's talk Fishbowl.
Okay.
So Josh, can you see Fishbowl?
I sure can.
Awesome. So I think last time we were working on the SQL queries, and
Yes.
the one of the things I think we remind me, I think we ended up wrapping up with just the line items and the individual data and getting that all displayed, right?
Yeah, we went through like the commands like from, select, and where, I believe, and then we went and actually into Fishbowl reports and copied the data out of there, pasted it into a SQL query, and then just edited a little bit to get rid of some of the extra excess code, and then we were able to run it exactly the same, just not the formatting, but it's like
Yeah, without formatting, correct.
yeah.
Yep.
So that was cool.
So I think now what we're going to do is some of the more advanced SQL. Not that I expect everyone to follow along, but the idea is, let's say we've got a lot of raw data and we still need to, crunch it, right? We need to maybe do like what we would do like in a sum if, right? And we're going to show you how we do that using Fishbowl or SQL really, and how that's a better solution than maybe trying this out in Excel necessarily. And I think one of the examples is going to be predicated around give me a total sales per product, right? And if we do that, I'll show you how we do that maybe in Excel or maybe Excel pivots, right? And show you how we would do that in SQL pretty quickly, right? And we'll kind of give you the two different examples of what it would take to do that in just pure Excel if we just have the raw data, and then what it would take to do that in SQL, and you guys will hopefully understand the difference, right? Sound good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Josh, if there's something from this week that you thought, or anybody from the live stream who has a desired query or an idea, a solution, something they want to see, like, hey, could you write me a query for this? Go ahead and write it up in the chat channel, or just send us an email at youtube@israellopezconsulting.com, and we'll incorporate that into the next live stream, probably next week, right? Okay. So we'll leave that there. Noel, you let me know if there's somebody who's got a question, and yeah, we'll get started. Great. So let's kind of get back into building our SQL again. So just remind everybody on SO item, that SOID, right? So this is the basic sales order query, joining these two things together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like sales order number, sales order item, product number, SO item, total price, right? Let's run that. So now we've got some basic data, right? We've got the sales order number. Let's give that as an alias. So we know what we're looking at: sales order number, the product number, and the total price, right? So what I'm going to do is actually export this to CSV. Test data. And give me a second to open that up. I'll switch to my regular desktop computer. I don't want to share too many things off that might be customers or things like that. Plus, I don't want you to see all my messy folders anyway. Okay, back to back to Fishbowl. Okay, here we go. All right, so now we've got this in Excel, right? And the business question is, tell me the number of how many total dollars of sales do I have per product, right? So what would you do normally, right? You do something like sum if. So you'd say, my range and my criteria, let's say B201, and then that, that's your solution, right? So maybe people start doing these sort of things, right? Because that's what they're taught. That's all they know. Fine. Maybe we try something else.
What would you say the downside of that is?
Well, because typically when you spend time doing one answer, you're gonna get asked to do multiple answers, right? So here I am I want to do a sum if of 201s and F201s, right? And let's see how that looks. So now we've got to do this, and then maybe I do, instead of typing it in, I use a reference, right? And then I sum my range, right? That should be fine. If I do this, that's actually worked out fine too. So if you notice the Excel references up here, you'll notice that, because I did range B and range C, that there's no problem with that,
Right, because it has the same information
the
for
same information. That doesn't always happen though, right? So let's do this again, and we're doing something like this, because this will happen. You know this will happen. Oops. 201, and then my range, and it's in that. Okay. Right?
both.
But see the issue?
No.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I skipped a row.
You're getting the same. Oh, I see what you're saying. You
I
skipped the
skipped a
first
row.
row.
And in this case, it was
Okay.
actually in my favor, right? Like you
Right.
couldn't tell the difference. And let's say we do B203, B201, FG 2100. This can get really tedious. So you do
But if
something
you
like,
use the table, would that have helped?
well, I
'Cause
think
then I think you don't have to. Yeah.
part of the issue is that the formulas are fallible, right?
Okay.
So this is the formula route, right? Now, some customers or some people don't even use the formula route, right? They do something like this and they say format as table. I do this. I
Right.
do this a lot. I format as table, right? And then what I do is I
Name the
summarize with
table.
yeah, and then I
Yeah.
summarize with pivot table, and then I do something like this: product number, total price, the number of in this case it's doing a sum of sales order numbers, and that's not what I want. I
Right.
want a count of
Yeah.
sales order numbers. There I go. Right.
Okay.
So now, so that's one way of doing it. Now, repeat it. It's been a month. I want the same result, and you go, ah, shit. You gotta go back to Fishbowl, run your query, run your report,
Oh. Okay.
format all of this, right? Wouldn't it be just much easier if it was done for you,
Hmm.
right? So that's what we're gonna do next. So what people would do as some ifs are native capabilities that the database can do that you don't have to spend a lot of clicking time or keystroke time, right? I think we've spent more time clicking and keystroking in Excel than we did typing the original query.
Could you not have just dropped into that same name table if it was a named reference? Couldn't you just have dropped the new data in every month, and
Pro-
then it would just do the same thing?
Probably, but that's the thing. It's like it's more of a brittle situation in that case.
Okay.
Yeah, you totally
Right.
could, but could you guarantee
Okay.
that it always works?
No.
Yeah.
I
So
guess not.
yeah, you
I'm
can't
not that
guarantee.
advanced yet.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
can't figure out the code in my class, so I'm definitely not.
so now let's cross check what we did in Excel, right? So let me maybe sort this by largest to smallest, and we'll look at the FG 2100 and the SP 100, and see if we get the same 37,500 and the same 5 cents. And we'll just check it, right? So the idea is basically to reproduce what this pivot table is doing, but in SQL,
Right.
right? So let me show you that works. So it's going to be pretty straightforward.
So that's just renaming that column and table to total price.
Mm-hmm. Okay, pretty good.
And distinct. Okay.
Yep, and then we're going to group by the first column. Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm going to run that, and then I'm going to sort this. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to sort it.
Wait.
I'm going to order by 2, descending. There we go, because I'm lazy. All right. Let's check that out. Are we right? So that's 37,500, 37,500, and make this a bit shorter. Clear my screen. Go back to Excel. 37,500, 37,500, 5 pennies, 5 pennies.
Great.
And this is what I mean about certain kind of analysis and certain kind of workflows are just so much faster and easier to do it in the database, right?
Okay.
Than exporting the raw data, putting it into Excel, running the pivot, and doing it all over. Now, there are options and solutions to connect the the this data sheet, I'm going to call it,
Mm-hmm.
right, and have that connected to basically run
Wow.
a SQL in Fishbowl and pull the results out, and then you can pivot from there. And that could be another show. Don't think we need to
I
do that
think
today.
that's the first video I saw of yours where you
Yeah,
had instructions of how to connect Excel to Fishbowl with live data.
and
I
maybe
imagine that's what it
we
was.
do that next week. We
Yeah.
run through that same thing again, but we're on a a virtual machine. That
Mm-hmm.
way, it's look, all the system has is Fishbowl and and Excel. So let's download the
Right.
driver. Let's set up the driver. Let's then connect it up to
Cool.
Excel and show how that you know how that experience looks like, right?
Right. Cool.
And we can, yeah, we don't need to spend here 3 hours talking through
Mm-hmm.
every possible thing we could do in Excel, but
Right.
we can save it for later. But yeah, you get the idea, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and this could be, and getting this result, you know it's just one click, you know so you don't really have to work very hard depending on the kind of things that you're doing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. To be honest, I think I still need to suffer through it to fully understand why one way is better than the other. Because to you right now, that code is really simple. It's just like it's almost like a second language. And for me, it's like, well, I have to memorize that code. Well, it's a lot easier for me to go into Excel and just pick a formula and put that in. Hit pivot table. It'll take less clicks for me. But when I wanted,
It'll
yeah,
take less clicks for you to do it once, but then imagine you need this answer 3 times a day.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So instead of having to export it, but what you were saying is creating the same query but connecting it to the live fishbowl database could get you the same thing without having to memorize the format of all the code, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the sort of thing that I think when we talk
Okay.
about, the power. Basically, this is like level one was last week. Level two is some form of this where we're not really doing that much exotic
Right.
SQL. But it honestly, yeah, it can be it can get more complex. You wrap things in more ideas. Um, and maybe we talk about that a little bit today. The wrapping of data, how you can wrap things around it and do more
So I
analysis on it.
imagine SQL is going to be really more useful once you start getting really complex, right?
Well, not even that complex because if you think about it, like all the reports you're using in Fishbowl now are using SQL anyway. You have to use SQL.
Sure.
Somebody has to have written the SQL for you
Hmm.
to get some of these insights, right? And I
Okay.
think that's the thing about that people forget is that these reports that are here. Let me go to the inventory availability. This is a pretty basic report, right? All it does is it looks at on hand, you're allocated, and then calculates an available with an on order, and some other other metrics, right? But what if you book in 12 months worth of orders in the system now, and they're separated, month by month, right? If you did that, then your allocated number would be huge, right? You'd be like, dude, like I've got tons and tons of inventory to on demand. Maybe I should just buy all that now. And you go, no, 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 no. I don't need to buy December's inventory in March. That's crazy. I'd burn up all my all my cash, right? So, and those are some of the conversations I've had with customers where they say, look at this, look at this report. It does nothing for me. It doesn't make any sense. When it's like, well, it would, it, but it doesn't make sense for your business because your business is running a bit differently than the standard report way, right? So, had Fishbowl not had this report available, you'd have to be spending a lot of time getting individual pieces of data together, putting it into an Excel file, formatting it for something similar to this, right? And that could take hours, right? And those are the hours that we're trying to help alleviate the pressure that a lot of staff accountants have, controllers, managers have in dealing with that, because it can get really stressful when you're trying to get answers and someone's breathing down your neck to get them, you know.
Right.
Whereas let's let's take a step back, let's take a breather, let's actually plan out what data we might need, and we build the right report necessary for the situation, right?
Okay.
And we've mostly been dealing with the sales order. We should take a look at, we should do like little tours of the different data sources in Fishbowl, like, what's in the purchase orders, right? Well, what's in the transfer orders? What's in the inventory module, right? We might even just do that now. Talk about inventory so much. Let's take a look at the inventory module and check out what we have there, right? Does that make a little more sense, Josh?
Yeah.
Okay. So take your pick. Where should we go next? Should we go more sales orders, more purchase orders, inventory? Where do you want to go? Where do you feel like we should go explore in the Fishbowl
Give me
database?
like an example of what you mean. Like maybe pick a certain question that you're saying, like what would I want to know about specific
How much
like specific
inventory do I
points.
have?
Okay.
Right?
Now, what I would like to see first is, because we have that available in a report, can you show me something that's similar to report but has extra information that we don't have here? Like, can
Okay.
we recreate this, but something that's more useful for us because we don't have it available here?
Okay. So let's do something. It's gonna be a bit of a reach, but we're gonna do it.
Okay.
We're gonna say, notice on this report there's no date for the on order,
Uh-huh.
right? Let's see how much the next arriving PO is for on order.
Okay.
So our criteria today would be, give me the part number, description, the current on hand, right? And the total on order, and then the next order delivery date and order delivery quantity, right? Because I have 217 on order, but when? It could be next month, it could be next year, and we'll show you how that, that is definitely a question that I've had before in the past, and I go, yep, that data's there, it's just not formatted the right way, and then we'll start figuring out how to
Okay.
show some of that data. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's detail what we're gonna do here. So I'm gonna delete this. So we need the part number, part description, the on-hand quantity, the total on order PO quantity, the next on order PO quantity, and the next on order PO date.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start from, okay, so now here's the bigger question. Where do we start from?
What do you mean?
Here's what I mean. And from a couple live streams ago, I learned to use the guest function in Google Docs or in Chrome, so that I don't accidentally reveal some of my old house and work addresses.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm gonna so this is something that I've explained to people in the past, and it's a good way of doing it, right? So imagine that you're on a route, right? You want to go from, San Francisco to Las Vegas, right? Would you? Let me get my little annotation bar here. The smart person would go, all right, you know what? I'm just going to follow the road between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and that's it. That's how I get there, right?
You talking about Las Vegas or Los Angeles?
Well, sorry, Los Angeles to San Francisco. Yeah.
Oh, Los Angeles. Okay, I heard Vegas
right?
before. Okay,
Yeah, and that's cool, right? But what if I'm starting? But what if I'm actually the way that I'm going to get there? I decide to go another route, right? So I decide to go instead of. So you know what? I don't feel like going that way. I feel like going to Las Vegas, then through Utah, and then back over to Nevada, and then back to San Francisco. Is that
Okay.
not a valid route to get to San Francisco?
Well, it depends what your goal is. Are you trying to get there as quick as possible?
Exactly.
Or are you trying to take a scenic route?
Exactly. Could it be that in order to complete, like, we could go between Los Angeles and San Francisco logically, but we got a buddy to go pick up in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
So we completely ignored him. Like we just left him in the dust, right?
Right.
So, but what if we? So maybe the right route is to say, you know what, we ask our buddy in Las Vegas to come down to Los Angeles and then come to San Francisco, right? You got to hop between these cities, right? And you got to pick a route that makes the most sense given the situation you're dealing with, right?
Hmm.
And the same thing with databases, right? And in my mind, we have a couple of ways to handle that, and that choosing where to start from is very, very important. In the last query we had, we started from sales order, right? And I didn't
Hmm.
explain why, right? So now I'm going to explain why through example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from part, right? Because I think that for most people that would be the logical way of starting this,
Inventory.
right? Because you're going to go deal with inventory. So I'm leaving my comments in there.
Good.
And I'm going to leave that alone. So this should give me all the parts in this particular Fishbowl database, which is 54 parts, right?
Okay.
And now we're going to grab some inventory data, right? So what I'm going to do is join tag, because that's what the database record is for inventory in Fishbowl. I don't have an answer for it. You just have to learn it. That's the best way to explain it. Just learn that it's called tag.
Okay.
And tag has a column called part ID, and that's what we'll use to join our parts together. So tag.partid equals part.ID, right? And tag will have a column called quantity. And we're going to call that on hand quantity. Make sure we put a comma up there. And that's it. Let me run it. Right?
Where did the comma? Okay.
Yeah. It's just there. Actually,
That's
you know what?
part of it.
Let me take this out now since we don't need him. I don't want to confuse anybody. Right? Now we have 116 rows. Right, see that down here?
Oh yes.
In the
now I
bottom,
see
in
it.
the
Okay.
bottom right. Yep.
Bottom right.
So now, trick question: do we expect in this report that we are going to have? Do we expect to have inventory records with 0 on it?
Do we expect to?
Mm-hmm.
Um.
We should have zeros, right? There should be things that we don't have
Yeah.
inventory for,
You want
right?
to know? Right. Is it ignoring it though?
Right. So if we sort this on hand quantity, you'll notice that every row in here has a record, has a value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we started with 54 parts, so we have some duplicates, right? I wouldn't say duplicates, we just have multiple rows, so I'll probably find,
Right.
yeah. So we have the Allen wrench set
Allen wrench
with
set.
3, 27, 15, so these are probably different locations in Fishbowl, right? Well, I know that, but people that are looking at data for the first time may not know that. So let's go take a look at TL100 and inventory. And that's one of the experiences that I want people to understand is if you don't understand something, go check out where you think it is in Fishbowl and figure it out. Okay, so we do have multiple rows here in the inventory module, right? That's not a big deal. It's not wrong. It's just that did you expect a single number? Maybe.
Right.
But why? You haven't done anything. You're just bringing records in. You haven't done like a sum or anything, right?
Right.
So let's do that real quick. Let's throw a sum on that. And let's throw a group by at the bottom here. Group by 1. And let's look at the TL100 again.
It's 47.
Did I miss it? TL. There it is. 153.
Nice.
Okay, let's go
And the
check
row
them.
count went down to 47.
We got 47 rows, and there we go. So now we definitely know that there are some inventory records here because we had 54 parts, and now we're making
54, right.
yeah, and now we only have 47 parts with inventory. So 153 is our inventory number. So if we go to inventory, we see that our on hand says 153. So
Nice.
grid. So now we know that we're by even Fishbowl's standard that we're looking at the same place.
Right.
Right. Okay, so now we got to look at something with maybe with zeros. So let's take a look at the inventory module and find something with zeros. So we're going to use the inventory module, advanced search, and when the pop-up comes up, show parts with no on-hand inventory. We want that.
Right. Why? I was going to ask that because when you show me that, I was thinking, oh, what about that check mark showed parts with no on inventory? What is the reason that Fishbowl defaults to not showing you anything without inventory? I mean, wouldn't that be
Because
important to see it anyway?
um yeah, but I think part of it is that it didn't have that in the beginning anyway,
Okay.
right? So when Fishbowl had the inventory module, their architect decided to show things that you had in inventory,
Okay.
right?
And so that turns that off.
Yeah. And I'm also just checking, I'm actually kind of curious why it's not bringing everything up because I've got 47 parts here and I've got this checked and I don't have zeros. That's odd. I think they broke that in Fishbowl. Finding bugs on a live stream. Sorry, Fishbowl. You'll have to. You have to. Anyway, so let's find a part. I know we'll find a part. So what we'll probably do is, okay, I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna find it in SQL, right? And then we're gonna cross-check it in inventory, make sure that's right.
Okay.
Right. So what we're gonna do is, okay, so how do we? So let's explain what's happening with the query now. And this is where it comes down to the the Venn diagram of joins, right? That we talked about last time. And the keyword that we're going to be looking at is this word join. So the word join has a specific. It's actually shortened. It's considered an inner join, right? But inner join and join are effectively the same thing, right? And when you have a join, you've got a left side and a right side that you bind together. So in SQL, there's a left join and there is a right join.
Okay.
Right? And
Right.
what that means is if we have a right join, it says give me every record on the tag, and if I have a part record, give me that as well. It doesn't matter, right? The problem with right joins is that you never use them, right? They're never. Most people will never have a good reason to use a right join. You'd typically rewrite this to a left join and swap, part and tag around. Does that make sense?
Pretty much. Can run that through again?
Okay. So you do left and right joins if you're not sure if the next jump that you're going to have. Remember the map? You go for
Yeah.
if you're
yeah,
not
right.
sure, it's like it's like I have to drive by Las Vegas to check if my buddy's there or not.
Okay.
Because
okay.
you don't actually know. So because you don't have a choice, you have to stop by there, and if he's not there, he doesn't get in the car.
Right.
So then you end up going to
Okay.
Las Vegas without him. But if he is
Right.
there, bring him along and bring him along for the ride.
Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
So in this situation, tag this construction right here as written doesn't make that much sense, right? Because in the purposes for the inventory, we kind of want things that have a part. If things don't have a part, then that's probably something else, right? And this is a little more like level 4 understanding, but
Yeah.
the tag table is multi-purpose in Fishbowl. It's both the tag for inventory and the tag for locations. So it can be both. But for today,
Right.
let's just assume that every tag record has a part, and this left join doesn't make any sense because we want to have that. But because if we're starting from tag, then we will never know if an individual part is missing or not, right? So actually, if I run this, you notice how I have 47 rows?
Hmm.
I should actually end up with the same 47 rows. It doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
Oh, no, like
48.
48.
Oh, there's an empty row in
There's
the top.
I know what this is. This is the locations.
Oh.
Yeah. Darn it. Demos. But so if I filter those out, tag part ID is null. Not null. I get the same 47. You see that?
Yeah.
But what I don't get are my parts with zeros, right? That can be pretty confusing. So that's why in this case we got to swap that around. Oops. And do this. Because now we're starting from the part which is the bigger table or the more important table for us to start from.
That's what you're saying, where it's important to start from because you get a different response based on.
Exactly. Just swapping those keywords changes the nature of the query. And I'll show you how this. So now I'm going to run this.
This is easier than Excel. Wow. Okay.
Right. No, because imagine you're dealing imagine you were dealing with this in Excel and VLOOKUPs.
Okay, so your point.
Right? Like VLOOKUPs, this is actually hard. Way harder. Because you don't have any data to work with.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right? So now I have some parts, and now I have the results that I'm expecting, these 54 rows, right? And from there, we should be able to, figure out, okay, I've got some blanks. Why is that? Because let's go take a look. I'm going to guess that the reason why they're blanks is that probably because they're non-inventory items.
Non-inventory items.
Yep.
Yeah, repair service.
Yep, service. So in Fishbowl, they would never be in the tag table, and they would never be in inventory. Make sense? So let's
Can
go.
You just tell it to ignore it. Why is it even coming up at all?
Because we're not smart. Because we're not smart.
Right.
Because we have now criteria to specify only inventory parts, which we totally could do. Do you want to do that now?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay. So how would we do that? That's a good question. Let's kind of break that down. So in the part module, we have a type, right? So ostensibly, if we go to the data module, tables, part, pop that up, there will be a type column here. I know there will be.
Because you've done this before.
Because I've done this before. But then for everybody else, you have to believe yourself that there is going to be a type column in here. There it is.
ID.
Type ID, right? So we got 20s, 10s, 21s, 22s. That means nothing to me, right? Okay, I get it. Don't be mad. Be glad. There's a part type table that translates them.
Oh, nice. Okay.
There we go.
10 means inventory.
10 means inventory. And what I call these are the magic numbers in databases, right? There's no reason why they're specifically a 10, 20s, 21s. It's just the Fishbowl architect way back in the day decided that this was a good idea.
Okay.
There's no call your mom's like, Mom, why did you have me? Oh, we thought it'd be nice. Some people it's like, oh, we wanted you to be a chess prodigy. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll go learn chess. There are answers that I can't even answer. There's questions I can't even answer sometimes. But anyway, so now we know that if a part type ID of 10 means inventory parts, we could filter this list down even more. So let's do that. So we use the keyword where and the column type ID, and we give that a value of 10. And now we're down to 47, which is what we had earlier. So that makes sense. So that means in this Fishbowl database for demo purposes, all the inventory
all those items are services.
Yes, all the other ones are non-inventory, or they're not. Sorry, they're not inventory type 10, because we know that in Fishbowl,
Services.
and this is the thing that I teach my people all the time, use the nouns and the words correctly. Non-inventory means this exact one. Not inventory means everything else,
Right, right, right.
right? Words
So
matter.
basically, in this demo, everything has some stock in it. That is an
Yeah,
inventory item.
yeah, and we're gonna
And
pick on one.
anything that's not.
We're gonna be mean, and we're gonna pick on the one that's the least inventory. Let's pick on this extreme mountain bike, FG 2200,
Mhm.
and we're gonna scrap it. We're just gonna get rid of it. So what I should
What?
expect to happen is to end up with 0, right?
Oh, right.
Right. So let's go to inventory, FG 2200,
The top.
4. There's 4 in here. We're gonna scrap it all. Fine. We're good. We go back to our data module. Now we have blank.
Nice.
Now is what is blank to a person?
Nothing, but that doesn't mean it's not the same. It means null, really.
Right.
Or
So you're already ahead. So I had a trick, and you can't see this on the camera, but I would what I would do is I don't have a box in here, do I? Anyway, so for people on the stream, let me switch it in here. So I had a okay, I know what I'm gonna do. I've got a little prop here, and I'm gonna do a couple things here. So I'm gonna write a couple numbers on a piece of paper, and I've got my little container, which we're gonna consider like the field in the database, right? So I've got my little. This is a gift dumpster for a dumpster fire. I actually have little pieces of paper for if it catches fire, so that and a little light so that you can see inside it. So inside of it, I've got nothing, right? So the whole idea with some of the when I teach some of my team members is okay. So I'm going to put a value in this container, right? A 0, right? And they open it up, and I'm like, okay, cool. Tell me what's inside the number. They're like 0. Okay, cool. So I do the same thing. I got the result. I open the container. It's a 1, right? What is the numeric value if the container is empty? And they said nothing. It's empty. And it's like, yes, that's true. But people don't think that way. Empty to them and to a lot of other systems and software and anything that deals with people, like even Excel, empty means 0. And that's not exactly the same. So if there's no value or no result there, then we should assume that we shouldn't try to assume that a calculation can be made, right? And
Right.
that's honestly a really good strategy or at least concept that needs to be followed. Let me put my dumpster fire back together, put it back on my
Okay.
desk, and um, and sometimes that can be pretty hard to explain, and I'll have more props at some point down the road when I do more of this. But the whole idea is that um, just because it's empty and your brain thinks it's 0 doesn't mean the database thinks the same thing. You have to tell the database what to do, right?
Right.
So for everybody else, that's a 0 because if we go to Fishbowl and we do
There's
FG,
0 in it.
it's 0 there, right? Because it's
Yeah.
helping a person understand that why is it blank? Well, it's 0. You don't have any, right?
Right.
So we also have to help the database to be human friendly by telling it what to do when it encounters a situation where there
Oh.
are no records, right? And that's what's happening now is that there actually isn't any row records for that part in that table tag,
Okay.
right? It's not that there's a single row with 0 in it. That would actually give you 0. It's just that we didn't find anything, right? So let's help the system. with another function called coalesce, meaning whatever the first field that you give it,
It's
if
always
that
0.
turns into a null, yep, roll over to the next one. In this case, it's 0.
Mm.
Make sense?
Yes.
So I'm going to run that, sort it, and now we get our 0.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yeah, and this concept kind of also persists into other databases, programming, things like that. And yeah, it'd be really nice if it was always a 0, but that's just not how system. For example, um, I'll give you an example. An employee. If the salary field is 0, are they still employed or not?
Huh. Or they're just working for free.
Like they were an unpaid intern,
Oh, that's a good point.
right? If the field was null for salary, maybe that's what for that database, that could be that they're fired. They have no salary. Right? Bit of a difference, right? And
Yeah.
explaining that and how systems and databases work will be that because what it all wants to do with databases is faithfully retrieve and deliver the data that was provided to it in the past in the structure that was provided in the past, right? And then provide that field and that data in the structure that you need it now, right? Okay, so now we're getting there, right? We're getting there. But so we've got the part number, part description, on hand quantity. Now let's see if we can get on order, right? And this is where we have to start being a lot more thoughtful with the way that we're writing our queries, right? So I'll show you guys the easy way of doing it, and then I'll show you guys the harder way of doing it, and then I'll show you my way of doing it. So there's a view called quantity on order or quantity total. I think quantity totals. See that? And this is a view, right?
Okay.
And a view is just basically a pre-written query that acts like a table.
Okay.
There's a lot more involved with that, but that's enough for today. So quantity totals, inventory totals, on quantity inventory dot part ID equals part dot ID. And we're going to put this next to on hand quantity. So quantity inventory. I think what was it in there? We had a column for on hand and on order. Yep. Okay. Now what do we have? We have, well, some inconsistencies. Fancy that.
34, 17, 129.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so quantity on hand should be the same as on hand quantity. Why is it not?
Yep. Good question. So let's take a look at that. So we've got HB 100.
$17. So the second quantity on hand is correct. On hand quantity is not.
Oh, let's see here. Do we have more than? I bet you I know. I bet you I know what it is. Let's take out the aggregation. And let's investigate. Oop. telling me an error. What group by one? Oh, the same stupid comment.
Oh, because the comment in the space. Okay.
Yep. Okay, let's see what happens. So let's go, and you know what? Let's filter this for that same part. Let's just keep it simple. Okay, it looks like we have some duplication. So we've got duplication, yeah. Interesting. But we have got different quantity on orders. I wonder why that's the case, right? Well, I know why. It's because the way that we joined the records is, it looks like we have, I'll explain, we have, one part record. And it looks like, because I have the tag ID, and that's what makes it unique, these ID numbers, right? I've got one tag ID, so I should still only have one, right? But I bet you I have two quantity inventory total rows, right? Why is that the case? Well, it looks like, see, I'm picking on this part ID of 27. I've got 3, 5, and 6.
Oh, different groups.
Different groups. Location groups.
And the locations.
Yep. So I've got a bit of a choice to make. So that's true. We do have different location groups in this fishbowl environment, right? That's why sometimes when you write a query for one database that only has one style of, it works, right? There's nothing technically wrong with it, but once you start adding location groups, the query just kind of falls apart, right? The way that you're folding your data, and it works fine until more location groups are added. So you got to be very careful, very, very careful. Okay, so now that's because I have two. That makes I have two rows. So 17 plus 17, is 35, I believe, right? No, 34. And that's why we never. That's why the system gave you a doubling of 17. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is actually change it around. So I'm going to use this view for quantity inventory totals, but I'm going to only summarize it by the part, right? So I need to do that before I continue so that I can add more stuff to the results. I'm going to actually get rid of these columns that I had before in the past. Leave that alone. I'm going to get rid of my tag, and I'm going to leave just quantity inventory totals, right? So I'm going to have quantity on hand, quantity inventory totals, quantity on order, right? Okay, right? But whoever is asking for this query wants something by the entire company or all location groups, so they want to flatten this down to one row, right? So as we learned in the past, we can go ahead, Josh.
The sum?
Yep, the sum. Oh. There we go.
Wow.
Now it's starting to make a little more sense, right? So we've got a quantity, 17 and 132, 17 and 132, right? Okay. However, I don't want to do only that, right? I actually want to pull in the next on order PO.
You say something about the date? You want to add the date in there?
I want to add the next the total on order PO quantity, and the next PO that it will come in.
Okay.
Right, because that's something that we didn't have as part of this query or this report.
Right. Right.
Right. When am I going to get that? When should I expect that next PO? Right? Because if it's in a month from now, it's like, oh wow, that's the soonest. So it doesn't matter if I'll have 500 units in the future because I'll get none of that in the next 30 days.
For the next orders.
Yep. For the next set of orders that needs to go out. So then I got to call my vendor and say, hey, can you expedite that? Can you put that ahead of time? Open up the factory, whatever. So it's important for us to get that information on the same row as the part, because otherwise, it doesn't deliver that value. It doesn't deliver that intelligence if we don't do that, right?
Right.
So what I'm going to do is just to kind of speed things up because I don't want to have a very long live stream today. I've got some other client appointments to do. I'm going to I'm going to continue and add what I think is the right way of making to and ensuring that I don't have duplicates, right?
Okay.
And the way that I ensure to not have duplicates is I do a subquery, right? And to do a subquery is to do something where I wrap another query in another query. You know that exhibit?
Sounds like Inception.
That is Inception, but my generation, my generation also watched Inception, although I haven't. We also watched
Really?
Pimp My Ride.
Oh, Pimp My Ride. I've not
Yo,
seen.
I
I've
heard
seen
you like
Inception.
TV, so I put a TV in your TV so you can watch TV while you TV.
Whoa.
Something like that. So, I heard you like
Okay.
queries, so I'm going to put a query inside your query so you can subquery while you query.
Okay.
And it's really easy. It's really simple. It's just allowing us a way to um, take an idea and say, take this idea that I just made up and apply it in a new way, right? So the idea that I'm going to take is basically this sum and say, but I only want it by the part. Notice how I have it like this? I actually want it like that, but I don't want a sum up here because if I do it up here, I'm going to have problems down the road. And you don't see it right now, but I will explain. So what I'm going to do is get rid of these, and I'm going to put some parentheses right after my join, and I'm going to give it an alias as totals. And what that's going to do is this is kind of the style that I'm intending to have, right? Whatever's inside here, I'm going to call it totals, and then I'm going to join this totals table on the part ID field that it has. It doesn't have it yet. Nothing's in it now. It's actually empty. And join it to this part's part ID. Right? So what I put inside of it is actually just like another query. Select quantity inventory totals part ID. The sum that I had before. You see that? From quantity inventory totals group by the part ID. Make sure I put my commas, and that's it. So this is considered a subquery. This whole thing in here, right?
Okay.
And you can do that as many times as you want. In fact, you can put this in a subquery, put this into a subquery. Like it all works. And the reason why it works is because there is a relational algebra. If anybody remembers that, props to you guys. I'll send you guys a mug. I'll send you guys a notepad. I still have notepads from the last live stream. If anybody wants a notepad, we'll mail them out. But what it is like it doesn't matter what's inside of it because we only care about the concept of what it represents. Like so, the details of what this generates is fine, but outside of that, we only care that it gives us a part ID, a quantity on hand, and a quantity on order.
Right.
Outside of that, right? So now I'm going to reference these columns here under the totals table, well, subquery table, and it should give me literally the same result. And it this is where databases are like black magic and a bit of an art form because this shouldn't make any difference almost, right? And in fact, it doesn't. You can't tell from the results of this one row that this style was different than this style.
But it will help later.
Right? Make sense so far?
Interesting. Well, in a very theoretical way.
In a very theoretical way, right? I get you. So, okay, so I've got a totals virtual table, and I'm using it. That's good. And now I'm going to join the next PO. Right. So first things first is to figure out what is the next PO, or maybe what is the next PO item, right? And to do that, I'm going to do another subquery, but a different style of that. I'm going to do a subquery where I only want one result, right? So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to left join. Why? Because I don't know if I'm going to have a PO. Maybe I have no POs. Could be true.
Mhm.
I'm going to join the PO item table on poitem.id. And you go like, okay, how are you going to do this? So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to start another subquery. And I'll say I want the PO item ID where from PO item, and then I want to join PO. Right? So this is kind of this structure, but on one flat line. I like doing
Okay.
that sometimes. It's not really valid SQL. Oh, excuse me. It is valid SQL. You know, all the line breaks and the number of spaces on your keyboard. It doesn't affect how the thing is processed. It's just nice for people like us, for humans.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is like, okay, I've got the PO and the PO item inside of this query, right? And I'm going to apply a condition where the PO item part ID equals part ID. Well, those of you who are astute would say like, wait. This part ID does not exist in the context of what's I just highlighted, right, within the brackets. And it's like, I would say that's correct. You're 100% correct. But MySQL and many other databases will understand that if this is not in here, to look
It's gonna be
outside,
the other stuff.
yeah, exactly, look outside of the query and see if part's out here, and it is, so it'll provide the part value every row as it goes through. That's very helpful, right? And then I'm going to say, and I've got another criteria where PO status ID is between 20 and 50, and PO item.status ID between 10 and I think 60. I could be wrong. So this works fine, right? And this actually might work, right? But we might have a problem. And that problem is if this generates a bunch of rows and this is a singular equal sign, what will it do? Well, let's go find out.
Just do the first one.
It won't. And in fact, this actually worked because I probably have one PO. So let's go break.
Oh.
Let's actually go break it. Let's go create another purchase order. Oops. And issue that. And another purchase order. And let's date this for the future. Let's date this in more in the future. Actually, you know what? I did that by year, didn't I? June 20. There we go. Okay. Boom. Subquery returns more than one row. Yeah. It's like, sorry, man. You like that would have worked. I would have let you do it because it could be possible that whatever query you wrote would only always return one row, right? For example, the company table in Fishbowl will only have one row for now. I mean, Fishbowl could have multi-company shenanigans down the road, but today that table only has one row, so we could always return one row, right? But we could ostensibly have more than one PO, more with this part, more than one PO line item with this part, right? So what do we do, right? So there's a keyword in MySQL called limit 1, right? And now we don't get an error. So just by telling it, it's like, hey, we're within this query, this subquery, return only one value. Cool. And since I only return one value, and I'm only joining once, that'll be fine. That'll work. Follow me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's go and display the next PO quantity. The PO quantity. So we'll do PO item dot quantity to fulfill as next PO quantity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since PO item has a date field in it, we'll have PO item. I think it's what was it? PO item date schedule fulfillment. There we go. As next PO date. Let's see if that works.
Spelling.
Oh, comma.
Comma.
Boom.
Wow. A lot of work. Bro, I'm freaking laughing.
Well,
Okay, so I have a quick question here then.
yeah, go ahead.
Were you going through all this as somebody who didn't really know SQL would be trying this? In your mind, you didn't have to take this long to come up with the answer. You would have known exactly where to go to based on your experience, right?
So yeah, this is all experience, all experience now, but I'm using the experience to explain why the value. Like we're just looking at one part. Fine.
But if initially I said to you, "Hey, let's find out this result," based on your experience, you could have just done it in like 30 seconds, not in 45 minutes, to show every step possible,
Yeah.
and then go through it. So I mean, it
100%.
is okay. So I'm just making sure it doesn't take somebody who's an expert 45 minutes to get through it.
No,
Like
no,
you
no,
didn't
no, no.
have to go through all those
I would have
steps.
literally. I mean, sometimes, and I surprise myself. I'll type all of this out and get it on the first shot,
Nice.
right? Or
Okay.
I'll tell you an actual trick. We have, you know, because we just, I've probably written something like this with a little more finesse and a little more pizzazz. But I'll just go
Mhm.
copy that section and bring it over.
Right. Right. Okay.
So,
Sure.
that's the nice thing about SQL is that because SQL is considered math. You know how I talked about the
Hmm.
relational algebra?
Hmm.
Because it's considered math, it's not copyrightable,
Interesting.
right? However, the things that are not math, like the spelling of things,
Huh.
you know how like maps will have like a town that doesn't exist on them, so that
Oh,
if
so
somebody
to keep
copies the
copyright.
map and they copy the town that doesn't exist, then they know like, hey, you copied our map. Give us money. Same thing. Anyway, I'm not that kind of person. If y'all copy the queries that I've got, fine. But if you want the whole set, we have them for free for now. At some point, we'll probably sell them. We will definitely sell the ones where they take more work to put together and more work to put them into a paper report or a BI script, right? Anyway, you talked about the timing of things.
Right.
So imagine getting a single answer for this part, right? Let's go check that how we get that. You'd go into the inventory module, you search, and you click on that link, and you open up this module, and you click on that button, and you get this result, right?
Hmm.
So that takes so if your boss says like, hey, when are we gonna get that HP 100 next? You'd go, okay, click, 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 30 seconds. Oh,
Right.
February 27th, 2020. Ooh, that's a bit old. Let's fix that. Let's call the vendor. That's actually a bit old. Let's go update that, save that. Go back to inventory. Let's check that out. April 22nd. Let's make some more POs. I thought we had more POs. Oh, I didn't issue this one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So now if I go back to inventory, I've got an April 4th, April 22nd, and a June 11th, right?
Yeah.
So to do all that, you have to go click, 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 and eventually get the answer, right? What if he starts asking you, oh, tell me the HP 102s and threes and this? It's like, why? Like, let's just, he's going to ask more information. Let's just give him a report that gives it all to him at once, right? So that's where these queries and reports come into play because they're just faster to get the answer. So,
Okay.
so if I'm going to get rid of this condition of this particular part number and
can add anything else.
Boom. Now we're looking at all 47 parts, inventory parts in the system with a quantity on order, a next PO quantity, and a next PO date.
Very cool.
Right? And I'll tell you though, there's a bit of a problem with this too. Right? We're calling a next PO date, but how am I ensuring that?
Meaning what?
That the result of this subquery is the next PO.
It's the same.
Well, not the same, but is the next PO by date.
So do you have to manually spot check it to see if it's working?
Well, and I know it's wrong. I already know it's wrong.
Okay.
How do I know it's already wrong?
March 8th, because for HB, where's the 100? No, we're not looking at that. Because it says the next one is past dates. You have
We could find an example where, so this one says April 22nd, 2020, right? And I already know we've got an April 4th here.
Oh, I see. So it's missing.
So now I know that it's broken, right? But I knew that before I even looked at the results. How did I know that it was already broken before I looked at the results?
I do not know.
Okay. Because this condition right here doesn't have an order by.
Okay.
Right? So because I don't explicitly tell the database how to sort this result and get the next the only one result out of it, it's just gonna pull whatever result that it has at the time. A natural, what they call a natural sort, meaning whatever comes off basically the disk or the chips at this point. So let's apply that. So we say order by PO item date scheduled fulfillment ascending, meaning we start from the soonest to latest to older. Right? There we go. And now we look at HB 100, and now we've got the April 4th date.
April 4th.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
and the quantity's right. And the quantity's right.
Okay. It just seems like so much can go wrong. It's like so you get to the point where you're sure of your data. It's like you said. It's almost an art form.
It is a bit of an art form, but I'll tell you though, I have customers who've written their own queries that I didn't expect them to learn SQL because they had a little bit of SQL experience, but they had no Fishbowl database SQL experience before. You know? So I know it's possible, and it's definitely a teachable skill for sure.
Right.
And that could honestly be maybe one of the biggest things. It's like, do you blame the French online class for your lack of ability for learning French? Probably not, right? It's just like you just got to put more work into it, right? Or spend time immersing yourself in the language and the problems that it might have, right? So one last thing we'll do is it's like, okay, when you're writing SQL, you kind of have to think about who's going to look at this. It's like, so someone will say, which PO is that April 4th PO on or about? Right? So let's go add that in there. And usually a good report developer or a query developer will kind of anticipate needs and just already add it into it. And I'm just going to do it right now. So once we've got the PO item row and we've got the PO that we're working with that's attached to it, then we can say PO number as next PO number. And make sure we add our comma. And there we go. HB 100. There we go. 50069. We go cross check that. 50069. April 4th. Does that make sense overall, Josh?
Yeah. Overall.
Overall. I feel like we may have jumped to one or two levels of training, but you can see the
Okay.
value of having something like this because the Fishbowl's done the work of having this screen available, and they've done the work of having this report available, but they haven't done the work of putting the, the next PO quantity, the next PO date, and the next PO number on this report for you, right?
Right.
And that's where learning SQL and or working with somebody that does, us, um, provides a lot of value, right? And in fact, what I want to do is uh, make this particular query available on the store for free, so that people can, you know, learn, what's on the store and get these queries. If you were following along, if you, were following along the whole time, you already have this query. You can just copy it, type it up
Mhm.
yourself. But for those of you who are coming to the live stream a bit late and just want the query, go ahead. We will have it in the description for this particular video. And yeah, and the next query, the next set of examples and queries will be investigating different parts of the Fishbowl database. They won't be as complex as this one, but the idea is that we will keep um, uh, keep on a tour of different database different tables and different data in Fishbowl, so that over some time, maybe 10 or 12 episodes or so, we've got a pretty good base that I can send people to and say, hey, you want to learn about inventory? Go to that live stream. Hey, you want to learn about work orders? Go to that live stream. We're going to be investigating every part of the Fishbowl database, learning SQL, and having fun as we go. So,
Cool.
Josh, any last words for the audience, or some thoughts you want to share about how
I
SQL
need a
works?
I need I need a beer.
You need a beer. I think we should have a 2 drink minimum for these live streams.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's great, but it also eliminates how much I don't know yet. So it's scary, it's daunting, but I'm getting an idea on what's out there. So it's good.
Remember that if you had to do this yourself, what would you do? You'd probably run the inventory report and then a PO report and then do some kind of VLOOKUP, wouldn't you, in Excel?
Probably.
No, you'd have to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You'd have to. Not probably. You'd have to.
No, I would think about it. I don't know. See, I'm still learning Excel, so I don't know. I'd have to. Yeah, I get that would make sense, and that would be bad because it wouldn't be able to repeat it. Interesting. Hello?
Actually, I hit the mute button on my
Oh,
headset
okay.
here. Um, that would be yes, that would be it would definitely be a challenge to do this in Excel, and it would be even more of a challenge to do this in Excel repeatably. That's the trick. Yeah, to do this not only for example, maybe you need to make this into a report that only gave a specific manager's location group of inventory on hand in their location group, inventory on order in their location group, and the next POs in their location group, not just company wide, right? And you had 10 warehouses that you needed these reports sent out to, right? So are you going to just go in there and, you know, uh, try to just bang this out in Excel? Probably, right? And not leak that information out to of what the other warehouses have, you know?
Interesting.
Then now we're talking about, like, okay, now we're controlling the data via query or via report, and that is something that is very valuable in that case, because it's totally fine when you're doing it for yourself, but it becomes really troublesome when you're trying to do this for more than one person, right? If you want this to be a solution for multiple people, then you really have to think about developing the SQL, developing the report, and developing the experience so that it's repeatable, consistent, and reliable, and you can trust it uh, as a data source, as a source of truth, right? And for me, Excel's great for modeling or trying an idea out, but it's not great for the whole, making sure that the results are repeatable. but I could be wrong. I'm, you know, this channel probably needs a little bit of controversy. So if there's somebody out there that can do it faster in Excel than I can, then yeah, we'll bring them on the show and have a challenge and see if we can do it. Well, we have to pick a result and see if they can beat us. Anyway, I think that's it. We're gonna end the live stream.
Cool.
Josh, we'll talk to you next week. Hopefully you stay safe and nothing happens in the next
Thank you. You
couple
too.
days. And yeah, when you go through that
Great.
Excel class, think of us and everybody else who's watching this later. Think of a query that you'd like us to write. We'd love to be able to do that live, and maybe we have like a sprint where we say, where we bet. Let's see how fast I can write a query with the results. You know what I mean? Like just query sprints. Just like okay, it's one after another.
I'm not betting against you.
Well, it's one of those like it's just like it's not like a horse race or anything, but just to see if we can like break a
Okay.
record of like.
All right.
But then you just write a super
That's
simple
it.
query and be done with it. Who knows? We'll see. Okay,
Very good.
awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody. We'll talk
Okay,
soon.
good weekend.
You have a good one. Visit the store. Buy something, please. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks.
Goodbye.